What's up and welcome back. John Stark from MacTheMovieGuy.com, your favorite blind film critic, and today we're going to talk about The Housemaid, which is directed by Paul Feig, who brought us Ghostbusters, Bridesmaids, and A Simple Favor. So, this one he's got Sydney Sweeney, Amanda Seyfried, and Brandon Sklenar. It's based on a best-selling book, and audiences clamored to the theaters for this in and around all of the Oscar fairs. So counter programming works. Not Oscar contending stuff here, but entertaining, especially if you liked A Simple Favor and you were like, I'd like more of this kind of thing, but not actually a sequel to A Simple Favor, another Simple Favor. Then The Housemaid was probably your thing. This type of story, Paul Feig seems to handle well. He just doesn't make good sequels out of them. Nobody will ever, because it's kind of like the cat's out of the bag after this one. So, we are introduced to the young Sydney Sweeney, who is fresh out of the pokey, and she's looking for work and looking for a place, kind of living out of her car, and she gets a phone call to become this like live-in housemaid, nanny slash maid hybrid thing, because they have a daughter, Cece, Seyfried and Sklenar, who are this incredibly wealthy couple that live in this huge, it's always in a huge house. You ever notice that? Like, no, we don't do middle class families anymore, or lower. It's always like people want to see other people living in ridiculously large houses. Just, that's it. So they have one of those big, beautiful, gorgeous houses that Sklenar, his character, had inherited a company from his dad, and he does something like data processing or something. It's very vague as to how he would be this rich. And Seyfried has no money, comes from nothing, and just is a housewife and mother. And at first, everything seems normal. Sweeney comes in and gets the job. There's a little live-in headquarters for her. It's in a room that's kind of creepy because the windows don't open, and there's a deadbolt on the door, but Sydney Sweeney doesn't think anything of it. I kind of did immediately when this happened, but you know, Seyfried just plays it off as like, oh yeah, I'll get you a key, and Sweeney's like, I'd love to be able to open the window. I'll have our handyman take a look at it. So as the movie progresses, Seyfried's character gets more and more like all over the place, like losing her mind, slowly driving Sydney Sweeney's character insane, and the audience too, because it's like one moment it's like a very manic performance from Seyfried. It's a great performance. She gave this and Testament of Anne Lee last year, so it was a great year for her. And Sweeney doesn't always react in the way that I think someone would in these situations, but knowing how the movie ends, it doesn't really matter. So it's her reactions are kind of moot at this point. But Seyfried and Sweeney kind of end up squaring off a bit, because obviously Seyfried has told her several things that ended up, that she ends up backing away from. A couple things, like she has Cece, she asks her to go pick up Cece at dance class and doesn't even tell her where it is. So Sydney Sweeney has to like figure out where it is. And then she gets there and like one of the other like rich moms is like, oh no, Cece's supposed to be doing a sleepover tonight. So I'm like, we were raised just like weeks ago. I don't know why you here. I don't know why you're here. And then when they call the mom, when they call Seyfried's character, Seyfried's like, oh yeah, I have no idea either. I don't know what her problem is. Oh, it's so hard to find good help. So, but yeah, we all heard the call, so we know Seyfried is like up to something. There's just other like shenanigans like that throughout the movie. So you're like, what is happening? And then finally, there's another nanny that like clues Sweeney into this past that Amanda Seyfried had, where when she was a new mom, she tried to drown her baby, and then her husband found out and had her sent to a mental institution for a while. So so maybe that's it. And even the husband tries to write it off as like, oh, we were trying for another kid, and she's really upset because she just found out she can't have any. All of that is going to come back around when part 3 to the movie. So part 2 ends up basically, not that these are even parts. Part 2 is basically Sweeney, well, Seyfried takes the daughter off to camp, leaving Sweeney alone with her man. And she had done this crazy thing where she asked Sweeney to plan this big romantic thank you apology gesture thing for her and her husband, and then she pretended like she didn't. So she bought these tickets to this Broadway show, booked a hotel room, and it was supposed to be like Seyfried and Sklenar going off to the city, but then Seyfried was like, why would I do that? Because CC has camp, so that's not what was gonna happen. You owe us the money. So Sklenar steps in and is like, hey, you should just go take a friend or something, you know. And then when she doesn't have any friends, he's like, well, I'll go with you. So I could probably stop describing the movie at this point. You would know exactly where it's headed. So yeah. However, it's also got a very simple favor type thing happening here where at a certain point in the film, um, you're just sitting quietly in your living room, and then like a Mack truck just drives into you, and it's like, by the way, this is what's actually been going on the whole time, which is interesting because then like the whole like third act of the movie I would define as being like explaining and explaining and resolution. So the film has to like explain itself of how it got to where it is, and then there's a resolution, and then that's it. So there's a lot of like, how did this magic trick get pulled off? How do we tell this story that we just told? And it does it in sort of a very interesting way, because at first it starts off by doing it from Sweeney's perspective, as sort of like the moment she was clued in type of thing, and then it does it from Seyfried's perspective through a letter that she left behind that Sweeney's reading. And so it's like, then finally you end up getting this like, aha, I get it all, I understand it all now. And you just have to wait for the movie to end. So I'm not going to spoil it. Everything else was not really a spoiler, because that's kind of just a back and forth, and there's so many different other things where Seyfried does some crazy shit and Sweeney's like, what's going on? I don't even understand. All of the peripheral characters are either underdeveloped or don't matter that much. There's Enzo, who's like the gardener, landscaper guy. He just kind of walks around and stands creepily. Like, he doesn't really have a fully fleshed out character. So, he's in some scenes, and the scenes that they use him in is fine, but um, not really a robust performance from him, from whoever that is. I didn't even bother, because he doesn't. He just is. He just kind of exists. Even Cece is like, she just doesn't have the kind of scenes for anybody to be like, oh, this is a dynamic performance from a child actress. Um, it's really limited to the trio in terms of who's controlling the movie, who's moving the narrative. Seyfried is really fun in this. Sweeney is really fun in this. Sklenar is exactly what the film needs him to be. Effortlessly charming, just disarmingly so. So he's exactly what the film needs for that. So, yeah, I like the movie. I think sometimes it gets a little bit into conveniences. It tries to pull off too many things, and it tries to. And I'm sure things work better in a book where it has a longer quote unquote runtime, because books can go on for hundreds of pages. And even when you sit down and you're like, oh, the audiobook version, you're like, oh, 14 hours of my life. Thank you very much. You know, in those instances, you're getting more of a fleshed out world, though. You're getting some of these characters make a little bit more sense, some of the interactions, some of the supporting characters that just kind of, that's the thing, is that the film really has no time for them. So most of the supporting characters are just like plot devices at this point. They're just like, I'm here. What did you need me to do? Yes, I'll go do that thing. Um, so they don't really ever stand out as characters. The only development that you really get in terms of character are for Seyfried, Sweeney, and Sklenar. All the S's. The S's. So, Housemaid. Yeah, I think I still like A Simple Favor a little bit better. I like just the way that it plays with it. Um, Even that film struggles with its supporting cast, but not quite to the extent that this one does. I think Paul Feig struggles a little bit more here with the supporting cast, and being able to bring them out. And there are things that you are supposed to know about Seyfried, but then once you know them and then you think about the way that other people have been reacting to her, does that make sense? Like, I don't know. It's super fun, but I'm not sure 100% it makes sense. So, that's that. It's entertaining. This is probably Paul Feig's thing, is he should keep finding books like this, because between this and A Simple Favor, he does direct this type of story well, and it's less divisive than him doing a Ghostbusters. And I don't ever want to see a sequel to Bridesmaids, because that film was perfect. So, yeah, just find more books like A Simple Favor and The Housemaid, and don't make sequels to them. So, even though this one ends in a way where it's like, sequel, question mark? No, sit down. The audio description here is really good. Was it Ingrid Tudor that did the audio description for this? I don't know if I have any strong thoughts on audio description. There are times where things are happening and things are described well. There are little bits and pieces that you're supposed to notice, little tools, or something being left behind, or something being, little things like that, or somebody staring in through a window. Like, a lot of like little unnerving things, but also little clues along the way that you're supposed to pick up on. And I think those are all described really well. There's also a sex scene in this that is uh, a lot. For what I was expecting, I was like, oh, this is going on for a while. Sometimes you just get a sex scene that's like a few seconds, And this was a little bit longer than that, so they had more to describe. Thought it was well described. Thank you. Anyway, um, The Housemaid. I'm gonna give it a 7.6 out of 10. I liked it. Sure, it has a couple problems and it gets itself tripped up into some of its own plot devices, but at the end of the day, it's a fun romp, and I think it's one of those films that is just entertaining. Even if you go, well, that would never, why would anybody? Like, it's one of those films where if you have a grumpy uncle or got family, nobody ever do. Why would they? It's one of those films. So, and then half the time you're sitting there going, like, he pointed it out, and now I see it, and now it's valid. Oh, God. But yeah, there's an entertainment value here if you can just kind of check out and just forgive the film for its trespasses. So, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. And I'll see you guys on the other side.